Hey, everybody, welcome back to another daily drop here on TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm THI publisher Andrew Jones, and the topic today is Carolina basketball. But before I get into that, very quick reminder that this show is sponsored by Underdog Fantasy, and we will have a word from them coming up here in just a few moments. Okay, the Tar Heels are sitting at 3-0 right now, 3 home games against, mid-level, mid-major, low-major programs, Radford, Lehigh, and Cal Riverside. Average margin of victory, 21 points, although the Tar Heels were pushed a little bit by Radford and pushed a little bit by Lehigh, which I think was actually very, very healthy. It's good for them. They played some different styles of play, so that was good as well. And Hubert Davis averaged about 16 different lineups in each of those games before it got to mop-up duty. So there was a lot of value in those first 3 games. But the reality is this team is not meshed or gelled, and they're far from meshing and gelling. Not just my words, their words. I talked to Jalen Washington about it, Jalen Withers about it, Armando Bacot. I talked to Harrison Ingram about it, talked to RJ Davis last week about it after various different games. And I asked Hubert Davis about it after the game Friday night, and he said, look, Roy's word of the day one time, or phrase of the day was, Rome wasn't built in a day, but it takes every day to work on it. That's where the Tar Heels are right now. This is a very new team with 5 transfers that came in from other schools and 2 freshmen joining only 4 returning scholarship players. And a lot of these guys that transferred in weren't just one-year guys. They played for a while in other programs, so the adjustment actually will take longer to Hubert's style, to playing on this particular stage, to playing with RJ and with Armando. As Harrison Ingram said, we can only mesh and gel in a basketball sense so much playing against each other. We have to play other teams. We have to play teams that don't know what we're running, and we have to play teams in which we don't know what they're running. So that elevates the defensive communication, and that also increases the meshing on offense. Armando actually said last Friday night, hit the 2 4s that mainly play with him. Harrison Ingram starting right now at the 4. Jalen Withers comes in for him, and Armando said they're 2 totally different players. So he has to learn to adjust to playing with Harrison as a 4, and then with Jalen as a 4, and it's going to take time. There's nothing cookie cutter about their games, and it's not a simple plug and play thing for Armando. Another part of the adjustment is RJ Davis. He's used to being on the ball. He's very comfortable on the ball. When Elliot Cadeau comes in, RJ's moved off the ball. He will get increasingly comfortable in those scenarios as more of those take place in game action. And basically what all the players that I've talked to about this have said, and Hubert agreed to it as well, is they simply need games. And they need games against competitive teams. They've gotten those 3 out of the way that really helped them sort of get their wheels churning a little bit in this process. But the next 5 weeks, they're going to have an opportunity to really figure out who they are and maybe have some lineups that stay on the court together for longer stretches as Hubert continues to knead the dough and mess with the science lab, mixing potions and really just kind of finding out everything that he has. I'm going to get more into that in just a second. Take a look at these next 5 weeks, who they're going to play, and maybe what people should expect as far as the full gelling process. But before I do, let's go ahead and hear a word from Underdog Fantasy.
Yes, guys, we are so excited to be partnered with Underdog Fantasy. And we decided to partner with Underdog because it's the easiest place to play fantasy sports, and it's also the fastest growing fantasy app in the industry right now as well. And Underdog Fantasy has so much to offer, including their Pick'em game. And in Pick'em, you pick whether your favorite players will have a higher or lower stat total in this week's game for a chance to win big. It's so easy to play. Just pick 2 to 5 stats of your favorite players and choose whether they'll go higher or lower. You can 20x your money by going just 5 for 5. They also have a Best Ball Mania. If you think you know football, you need to check this one out. This year's Best Ball Mania has $15 million in total prizes up for grabs, with the winner taking home $3 million. So sign up today with the promo code HEEL, HEEL, and get your first deposit doubled up to $100. Visit UnderdogFantasy.com or find them in the App Store. And don't forget to register with that promo code HEAL to get your first deposit doubled up to $100. Must be 18 plus and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms do apply. And if you're concerned with your play, call 1-800-522-4700 or visit ncpgambling.org. Back to the show.
Okay, the Tar Heels are in the Bahamas this week. They have 3 games. They play Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. They open the event against Northern Iowa, which plays in the Missouri Valley Conference, a program that's had some success in the past. They're going to have some long dudes. They're going to have some guys that can shoot. And they actually beat Carolina when the Tar Heels were number 1 in the country way back in 2015 in November. In fact, the day that the Carolina football team clinched the Coastal Division title with a win at Virginia Tech and Frank Beamer's last home game, the basketball Tar Heels were playing at the same time at Northern Iowa. They were number 1 in the country and they lost. So Northern Iowa, they've had success. They won games in the tournament before. Harrison Ingram said he already knew a lot about them. When I talked to him about it last Friday, it was just about the event. And he's like, hey, they're no pushover. Now they are 1-2, but that doesn't matter. What matters is the Tar Heels get another game, and this one is on a neutral site against a team that might be able to push them for a while, and we'll see how they handle that. After that, they're going to play on Thursday, Thanksgiving Day, either Texas Tech or Villanova. And then on Friday, they'll play one of Stanford, Memphis, Arkansas, or Michigan. So if you were a Carolina fan, and I assume most of you are that are watching, the best case for Carolina here is to play the best possible team they can to help speed up this growth and meshing and gelling process. So ideally, it would be Villanova, although Villanova lost last week to Penn, but that's college basketball these days. That happens. The people that were complaining about Carolina only being up 2 or whatever it was, 3 on Lehigh early in the second half, got to understand college basketball is crazy now. Stuff like this happens. And then Arkansas, which was supposed to be outstanding this year, they lost at home to UNC Greensboro last week. Michigan, I don't think, has Juwan Howard back at the helm yet. Stanford is coached by Jared Haas, who was assistant for Roy, played for Roy at Kansas. The Cardinal are kind of wobbling a little bit. Memphis, a lot of athletes. Penny Hardaway is coach. And by the way, Texas Tech still has Kerwin Walton, a former Tar Heel. So this is a good field. It's not a great field. It's a field that the Tar Heels should be able to navigate through and pick up 3 wins. But as important as that, they need to play 3 games in which there are some different approaches thrown at them and they respond. And Hubert shows that he'll use the bench according to the scenarios. And that's, I think, one of this team's strengths is that he can use a Jalen Withers on the court in a certain situation as opposed to maybe Paxson Wojcik, move Cormac Ryan or keep Cormac Ryan at the 2. You have a Ingram at a 3 and you use a Withers. Or there's a scenario where you might use Jalen Washington on the floor with Armando a lot more. All of it depends on circumstance and scenario. But that's one of the reasons it's going to take time for this group to gel, because it's not just how they play off one another. It's not just Harrison knowing, oh, RJ is going to shoot here in a second and he crashes the boards, because weak side offensive rebounding has not been good yet. Part of that is they don't know one another just yet. It'll improve the more they know where the shots are going to come from. But a big part of this is Hubert and how he uses the bench and when he uses certain guys and the kind of player groupings he likes to put on the floor for certain things. For example, last week in the game against Cal Riverside, the Tar Heels were kind of waddling around a little bit. Seth Trimble gets on the floor. Jalen Washington's on the floor. Energy guys. Jalen Withers. There's a lot of energy. And what happened? 17-0 run. And it's a run that was not just dominance offensively. There was some defensive stuff that led to some easy baskets, one of which was the crowd-pleasing dunk by Seth Trimble. But then there might be other games. They just need to go big and powerful. Get Armando out there. You get Zayden High out there with him some. A lot of Washington, a lot of Withers. Withers is a guy that can bang. He's a guy that can pull you in an alley and rough you up a little bit. And Hubert's going to have to figure out the nights when one thing is necessary or another thing is necessary. And that's a part of this gelling process. But what each of them have told me, and I've talked to 5 players about it plus Hubert, specifically about this, and they have all said they just need games. This team needs games. They've only played 3. Everybody else in the ACC has played at least 4, with several having played 5. And honestly, by the time they tip off Wednesday, almost everyone in the league will be like at 5 games, and Carolina will be at just 3. So now they get 3 in 3 days. These 3 days are hugely important for this team's development and growth. They need to get a lot out of this. They need to push that process forward, because afterward, they got Tennessee at home next week. Going to be a very, very difficult game. And then they got Florida State at home in the ACC, the Saturday, the day of the ACC championship game, and the Seminoles are better. Seminoles are definitely a better team than they were a year ago. Leonard's got that thing ticking back up. Then they got to go play Connecticut in Madison Square Garden. They get 10 days off, and they play Kentucky in Atlanta, and then a few days after that, Oklahoma and Charlotte. So think about this. This could be their next stretch of games. Northern Iowa, Villanova, Arkansas, all neutral sites, Tennessee at home, Florida State at home, Connecticut on a neutral site, Kentucky on a neutral site, Oklahoma on a neutral site. Oklahoma, I think is December 20th. So we're talking a month, 4.5 weeks, 5 weeks for this team to have an opportunity to play a lot of really good teams, a lot of outstanding athletes, a lot of different approaches to the sport. So Hubert can really work that bench and knead that dough. And when Christmas comes, this group ought to have a fair idea who they are. I still think the gelling process in some respects will continue, because I think once they kind of figure all that out, then they have to work it. They have to be that team for a while. And it might be early February before they really kind of hit a stride. Now, they could lose some games coming up here. And Carolina fans should not get discouraged if they do, no matter what happens, because this is all a part of a process of building to where this group's going to be by January, by early February, and of course, by early March. But they're not going to come close to being the club that they can be and likely will be until they gel. And it's just going to take time. And those aren't my words. That's what Armando said. That's what Harrison said. That's what both Jalen said. That's what RJ said. And that's what Hubert Davis said. So be patient, guys. Don't get too ticked off if something doesn't go right in the Bahamas, or if Madison Square Garden looks kind of ugly, or if Tennessee steals a win at the Dean Dome, or whatever the case may be. Allow this thing to play out, because they recognize this is a long-term situation. They're not one of the reasons they didn't panic last week when the lead was down to 2 against Lehigh, because they recognize it's not about the Lehigh game. It's about something much bigger than that is further down the road. That was just that step in the process of getting them there. If you are excited about this gelling process, and if you are confident or optimistic that the gelling process will render tremendous amount of fruit for the Tar Heels, go ahead and click like on this video. If you're excited about the trip in the Bahamas, the tournament there in the Bahamas, go ahead and click like as well. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. Hit the notification bell so you know every time we upload, and we're doing a lot. I'm not going to be in the Bahamas this week. I always prioritize the NC State football game on this Thanksgiving week, so I don't travel to the basketball games. Trey Scott will be in the Bahamas representing THI, so he'll have some stuff, and I'll produce some things, and I'm going to do some 3 things videos right here from my office at home, and looking forward to seeing that. Looking forward to seeing what the team does. And by the way, make sure you tell your Carolina friends that we are here. Have them come on over, check us out, not just our channel, but our website. And for $8.33 a month, you can be a Tar Heel insider too. Go on over there. Check us out. It's a pretty good deal. Same price it's been for 10 years. Everything else has gone way up. We're still the same price. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.